Good morning, everyone. It's still 11:44 a.m. February 25th, 2023. Anthony Tharp making another insert, and this morning I'm going to try to address my outlook on the press and its relationship and the interrelatedness of corruption and the press's lack of professionalism in neglecting their duties to the nation and the people of Jamaica, in fact to the world, because the press has largely been one of the instruments of scamsters and corrupt persons because of their deliberate negligence in reporting crime, investigating crimes, criminals, and what's undermining the general society. And that plays a major role in what happens in your country. It plays a major role in whether this country advances civilly or it degenerates itself into backward, barbarism and all kind of criminal activity, a failed state. So the reality is billions of dollars are lost every year by Jamaican citizens, and that affects the quality of life that we experience on the island and will continue to experience in the negative, because we keep regressing. Our life, quality of life, keeps diminishing annually as crime, violence, and corruption increases. Now, I've never seen corruption so high in this country that it's almost ridiculous. It's almost like it's right in our faces every day. There are news reports of new corruption or evidence of corruption, and it seems like there are no solutions. But I'm saying to everybody that's hearing me, listening to this video, there are practical solutions. And again, it's up to us to bring them into fruition and make sure we fix our country. The corrupt aren't going to do it. So our belief system in sitting and waiting for government to fix corruption or law enforcement to fix corruption in a corrupt country, one of the most corrupt countries on the planet, with listings of law enforcement and politicians being corrupt, they're not going to fix it. So let's be real, let's be practical, and stop being dishonest to ourselves, because we close our eyes to the reality that the only way it's going to be fixed is if we can fix the persons who are executing these crimes upon the entire nation. And it's not good enough for us to just sit around and pray and hope. They say prayer without works is like going down the toilet. That's what we're doing. You have to get busy with trying to work out these issues and fixing them. So I'm gonna look at the press, because the press is one of the organizations that the people of any country look to protect their interests by becoming the watchdogs and protectors of the nation's business and the activities that affect those businesses in the negative. And crime is one of the things that's affecting this country to the point where we're almost afraid to open our mouths and speak, because we don't know who's committing these crimes, because it's a massive cover-up by the press. And like everything I've put on video and offered you the opportunity to look, I'm saying to you, these are things that I am 100% sure is accurate. Why? Because for some reason God has put me in that position where I've experienced everything I'm saying to you, and he knows why he's doing it. Maybe that's my journey on the planet for the rest of my time here, is to play a role in exposing what's going on. And we talk about corruption in the banks, in government, in the Supreme Court, but none of it can survive without the press playing its role. Because if the press is doing their jobs, we wouldn't have the level of corruption that's there. And I can say it without reservation that I firmly believe that the corruption in the courts and these judges are there because the press won't cover it. And I'm talking from the Gleaner all the way down to the Mirror, or the Mirror all the way up to the Gleaner. and its group of companies. And I think one of the problems in this country is that the press is so comfortable because they're almost a monopoly. We have three papers in Jamaica, maybe a fourth that many of us don't know about, but I'm aware of the Observer, the Gleaner, and the Western Mirror. The last time I was in Jamaica, I think I saw a free paper that's published every so often, but it wasn't well known. So let's say there's a fourth one floating around out there. There's almost a monopoly. A nation of 6 million people on the island, off the island, and there's only three newspapers, and those newspapers are owned by media houses. So there's a monopoly, a tight monopoly, with these, the same people controlling what goes out to the nation. And they can't be using the government as an excuse, because if the government is involved in disseminating information and telling the press what to do, that is what we call censorship. And we certainly don't support censorship in a democratic society. So if the press is relying on government to tell them what to print, they need to close their doors and go someplace else, because that's censorship and it's embraced by them if they continue to do it. The nation needs to know what's happening in their country in real time so they can protect themselves and be safe. So the people need factual, unbiased, objective reporting. We're not getting that. Mr. Cliff Hughes over by Nationwide, I can freely and openly state that he's one of the parties that I'm most disappointed in. I have him on my email list, as a matter of fact. And when I send out most of this, in fact, I stopped doing it now. I send it to him as well, with the hope that a person of that caliber and recognition would take the time to publish factual evidence and data so that people can be aware of what's going on. So the press leaders and the broadcasters have no credibility as it relates to protecting this nation by giving us the necessary and critical news so we can raise discussions and raise our consciousness so we can readily deal with these issues, because we now pressure the government to make sure that we are protected in that regard. So the biased publication, for example, they only take ads from certain people. And again, we can prove that. We've sent several application ads to the Gleaner, for example, and they've refused to publish it on our front. And everything we've sent to them is factual. It's not breaking the law, but they refuse to publish it. And of course, that raises the issue which I raised in a previous video of what relationship is this with the conspiracy that's being fought against us and these news organizations. What's their interest? And they always say follow the money trail. Why are the press persons out there covering up these critical issues that's facing the nation? As I said, follow the money. They have an interest in whatever is going on. They're trying to protect their money or earning money from it. Are they being paid to suppress the news? Because I don't understand why, for example, the Gleaner would refuse to publish the things that Capital One is doing in terms of ruining this nation's economy and its people. Because when Capital One is having its way in preventing major projects from coming into this country and being developed, and major capital that to come into this country and develop this country's economy, which will be beneficial to the people, it means they're ruining the Jamaican people. So what benefit is it to Capital One in relation to the Gleaner? What's the mutual relationship, the mutual benefit? So it raises questions, and I will continue to say nothing happens on its own, and there are no coincidences. So here we have a major newspaper which also is owned or has a tight relationship with broadcast news media, and the news is suppressed. Why? And in fact, I did state in an earlier video some time ago that we had a meeting with the legal person at the Gleaner in Montego Bay, I think in 2012? Yeah, when all of this started. And they said, well, since it's in court, they can't publish. And I was like, why? We're giving you the facts, we're giving you what's happening, we're giving you the evidence of the fraud. They said when it comes out of the court. So when we got that judgment in 2015, we brought the documents back to them and said, all right, let the Jamaican people know what's going on with this and the kind of fraud that's existing in this country and in the courts. And they told us they wouldn't. At first, they took the documents, didn't hear from them, so I kept inquiring. And finally, one of their executives met with me outside the building, by the way, and said, Mr. Thorpe or Anthony, the higher-ups don't want this story to be published. Why would the higher-ups not want a story to be published? They're selling people the paper. People are buying ads on the radio. Why wouldn't you publish it? So they must have an agenda, a personal agenda, to suppress and shut down information that's critical to the people of Jamaica. So there's something wrong with that. And again, we must express our outrage. We must express everything that's going to ensure that the news media performs their jobs. And the discrimination that occurs in their publication has to stop. Now again, I love the word again, because I keep repeating it. Now, you see this legal notice, and at the bottom here I have it, the Mirror, and it's a legal notice that when they knew they couldn't win, and we started back our project in 2015, I think, and they couldn't stop us in 2018. This was published by the Mirror in 2018, I think. Let me see. 28. Well, this was filed in the courts, or the court gave an order. This was the injunction. Friday, April 20th, 2018. But the Western Mirror, August 20, 2018. And I pointed out to you because the Western Mirror, the Western Mirror refused to publish our ads. Even a simple ad that we wanted to put in there the other day, just to put the link to the YouTube channel which you're now watching, to say we want you to go to this channel and look at what's happening in the country in terms of fraud and corruption. And they refused to publish it, to print it. We did the same thing with the Gleaner, and they refused to do it. I mean, this is less than a month, 2 months ago, maybe 2 months ago, and they refused to print it. Now, I'm showing you this legal notice because we did mention the other about the malicious nature of the prosecution that these people are putting us under. And of course, the courts are allowing it. They published this, and instantaneously, people on the streets who saw it called me, emailed me, to say there's a publication in the Mirror that there are injunctions against your project. Now, the courts did issue injunctions against us, as we said. But one of those injunctions was lifted by Justice Beswick. They also published it. And then they published this other injunction. And people got the impression that it was the courts that were publishing the Supreme Court, because when people call or email, they'd say, oh, the Supreme Court published a notice in the paper. And I think we mentioned it before that no such thing took place. But it's again pointing to the fact that these media houses are not only biased, but they're discriminating and they are complicit in executing their duties. The discrimination and the complicity is aiding and abetting these corrupt people in carrying out their scam against us. Because here it is, This was Capital One, possibly Mr. John Graham and his co-conspirators going in and publishing this ad in a newspaper that seeks to destroy our image and our business, because they're fighting tooth and nail to destroy what our intention is to accomplish, getting our damages, get our projects moving. Because again, we started to move on our projects in lieu of the fact that we had to now wait until the courts to set up a re-engagement or meeting or CMC about our damages. And in fact, it was supposed to be done in open court, because I believe when you're making certain rulings, like for example on damages, especially a final order, it has to be in open court. And that's where we were when Justice B. Morris decided he didn't want to hear anything from us regarding our own money, our own property. That said, these people were being facilitated by the Mirror, because the Mirror here published this article or this ad, collected money to publish it, then refused to publish anything we wanted to put out. So again, you see how the relationship works. These persons, and what again, I pointed out earlier that what's the interest of the gleaner in carrying or not publishing these stories, and what's the interest of the Mirror to publish and then refuse to allow us to publish anything on our side of the fence. And we're not asking them to publish anything that's defamatory or could cause them harm, because everything we're publishing is already in the public press, it's in the public sphere, and it's out there. And we're saying, and we'll say, and I'll say again, that we said we'll hold you free from any liability as it relates to this, and we're willing to put it in writing, and you still don't want to publish. Why? So they're helping to keep the crime high in this country, because just like they're refusing to publish the things we want out to identify, show to people, these people are committing crimes. Because if we publish and show our videos and identify the people who are out there committing these crimes and scamming people and filing fraudulent documents in court and acting in contempt of the rulings of the court, while on the other hand we are complying to the rulings of the court, and we can't get our freedom or day in court to get anything we want done, which again is a violation of UN Charter and even the Jamaican Constitution or civil rights, because you're stopping my business and me from earning a living, from producing, which is our right to do. And here the press is upholding that, and they can't say they don't know about it, because again, I email them the videos. I've done it, I've stopped now, but I used to email them the videos. Anything I'm publishing, I email it to them and say, publish this. I went as far as saying I'll write the letters to the editor, and they refused. They say they spoke to attorneys, and well, that's what they tell me anyway. The Mirror said they don't want to be sued because they're a small paper. Again, if you're not doing your job, just leave the arena, because you're helping to cause fraud in this country to grow. And we have to have solutions. When they refuse to investigate crimes occurring in the country, let's say for example the press with Jamaica is a small country. Come on, I can drive out Jamaica coast to coast, around the coast 2 times 3 times for the day, one day. It's bigger than Cayman, yes, but I can do that. I can drive around this country if I start out early enough. In 24 hours I can circle the island 3 times. And you're telling me the press, these media houses who have a monopoly on this island, cannot do investigations within the people who live here to say, who are the people selling guns, carrying in guns? If you're scared of doing your job, give it up. The guns and the gun crimes and the weapons of mass destruction that's coming into this country, it's not so difficult to find out who's doing it. Do some undercover investigative journalism. if you are scared to put your face out there. You can take in anonymous calls and reports and then go investigate. Do it quietly, but investigate and then publish. There are ways to do it, but we need it done. And you don't realize how much you're damaging this country. Because when you allow these things to continue to happen in the country, and let's say you don't want to investigate, all right, those people bringing in weapons of mass destruction, and I pin here and say these persons are the same persons who facilitate the continued existence of these corrupt people, because they're the ones that get the contract to go out and eliminate persons who would expose them. So again, the press not taking care of their responsibility and exposing the criminal activity that's occurring in the courts and in other government agencies by blinding their eye and refusing to publish that before it gets to the point where these corrupt people being exposed now go and retain these contractors, these elimination contractors, to take out people and have them disappear. And because of your silence, they're facilitated. And so we have a vicious circle that continues and it feeds into the other. So the corrupt persons that are there need the services of these elimination contractors with their weapons of mass destruction. And I pointed out yesterday, where are they getting these contractors? Where are they getting these weapons? Because they cost a ton of money. They cost a lot of money. And so it's not for free. So you see the kind of build-up, the kind of symbiotic relationship that exists between the corrupt people in the courts, the corrupt people in government agencies, a government that refuses to deal with corruption, and the press that fails or is failing to expose the corruption and facilitating criminals by not publishing these news media events. I mean, these newsworthy matters that affects the nation and the nation's ability to have the best lifestyle possible free from crime. There's an interrelationship. One feeds the other. One supports the other. One can't exist without the other. So when the press fails to do their job, the scammers and the corrupt people feel they're untouchables because nobody's going to know they're doing it, or it's not exposed and in the plain sight of the public doing it, but not being exposed. The nation and the people of the country now are now scared to say anything, because if the press not publishing it and the police not locking up these people and people show up and eliminate other people because of the actions and activities of these corrupt people, then yeah, a lot of people, just ordinary citizens, they have a legitimate fear that if they get out there and start saying stuff, they will become the victims of these cleaners or contractors. So you see the interrelationship, the symbiotic relationship between a negligent press, corrupt government agencies including the court, contractors who are operating illegally, taking people's lives, and the facilitators of these contractors bringing in the weapons, and the press not even trying to cover stories on where these things are coming from. So again, nothing happens in a vacuum in a country. Nothing happens. All that's happening to us and the corruption in the courts and us not getting the right to exercise our legal interest in this country is all because of corruption, and all these guys play a role. And that's why I'm so adamant about the press, because the press needs to step up or step off. It's as simple as that. They need to step up or step off. Don't give people the false sense of security that we have watchdogs looking about our interest. And then they come on these, news media events in the afternoon. Oh, we're covering this story, and they put so much passion in. But the passion they're putting in, not with solutions. They're just covering what we already know. They're talking about the same thing we know about without giving any new information or new exposure. So we have redundant information, and now it becomes just entertainment for people who are bored. and want to hear the opinion of somebody else about an event that took place already, the detrimental event that already destroyed the nation's quality of life. You look at the press, look at the stories they're covering. We have these journalists, they're all up there hyped up, and all they're doing is covering stuff that's already out there. No new information, no new discovery, no exposure that we can force now to say the nation can say, oh, if the press knows this. I think we should point to 48 hours and all of that on US media or global media. If you notice, those agencies go out and they do investigative journalism. And when they go out and do that, they go and they broadcast it. And out of those investigations, then law enforcement are forced to go and carry out their duties. You know how many people have been let out of prison because of reports by investigative reporters who tell the story, do the investigation, and then allow law enforcement and those prosecutors who would close their eyes to the facts and incarcerated innocent people to free those people. That's what the press, when they do their jobs, the press expose criminals, and then law enforcement act on it, because the nation knows now that they can't use this excuse about they don't have the information. We gave the press information, we gave the police information, you've seen it, we've cataloged it, we've shown you the details, and we did that because we wanted for you to understand that we have given these people evidence of everything we're saying, and everything we're saying are criminal activities, and yet no arrest, no stories, no publication. So now you understand why crime is so rampant in this country. And what do we do as Jamaicans, especially those of us who live abroad? How can we encourage persons of either Jamaican descent, Jamaican citizens, to say, return home on retirement, buy a home in Jamaica when you have that extra money and you want to invest it, because it will be there. We can't encourage people to do that, because we would now become part of the whole system that leads to these persons' ruin. And how do you sleep at night when you tell people, move back to Jamaica, buy and invest in Jamaica, when it's to their detriment? And I mean literally their detriment. So how is a press that's supposed to be protecting the interest of Jamaica not to be blamed for helping these persons destroy innocent people's lives, both on the island and those who want to come home? How do we protect the tourists? You think right now we're spending a lot of money in the tourism area with patrols and all of that, and yet we don't have a lot of tourists coming on the streets. They're all-inclusive. But how do we protect the tourists that are predominantly out there amongst the people who are either descendants of Jamaicans or Jamaicans themselves? How do we encourage them? How do we tell them, you know what, don't bother come to Jamaica because it's not safe. Go to Cayman, go to some of them other islands, go to Italy, go to Europe, go to Dubai, go to China. How do we tell them, honestly, don't do that and come spend your money in Jamaica? What kind of government we have that can do that? What kind of press do we have that sits there and refuses to protect people from bodily harm? They're indicted, they're part of the problem. They likely are being supported by some of these very corrupt persons, because as I posed the question before, and I submit to you, what's their interest in covering up these stories? They're being paid by these people. They have an income stream from these people, and so they don't want to burn it up. They need to come out and tell us. They need to come out and honestly tell Jamaicans, what's my role as being a press in the scamming of this country's people, the economy, because all the citizens in this country are being affected. The poor working people, who are honest people, who are struggling are being affected. They're the ones that have to pay these large GCT bills on everything they purchase, because when goods and services go up in price, because we can make the economy grow and our dollars are depreciated on a regular basis. I think our dollar is less than 10 cents now, right, to the US. Again, I could be wrong, but I know it's way down there. And every time the country's economy is damaged, then we have deflation of our dollars and we have inflation of the economy. And so the people who live there, including you who live there, some of you who are paying attention, have to deal with it. And that points to another thing. These very same persons that were caught the other day at these banks and SSL, corruption is what kept these people out there, because nobody wanted to prosecute them, because the people in the banks knew, somebody must have known. SSL people must have known. The indication is that the Prime Minister was warned. He pulled his money out and left everybody else to hang, including the Jamaican people, because it's our tax dollars that is deposited in there, in the housing trust accounts, in the other accounts that are there. As a matter of fact, I was thinking about it. Why are tax dollars being put in investment accounts? One of the policies of our instructions or warning you get from any intellectual that's involved in the finance industry, the securities industry, is that any money you put into an investment account, securities, you're likely to lose. So can Jamaicans stand to take their money and put it in an investment account, any investment account with anybody out there, and afford to lose our tax dollars when the government is out there burdening everybody with increased taxation on a regular basis? And increased taxation is not just saying we went tax you on GCTR on your land. It's what the US came down and taught them, creative taxation. I don't know if you remember in the 80s that the US government sent people into Jamaica and taught them, they were teaching them how to do creative taxation. Because every time they raise the price of a ticket, that's creative taxation. That's revenue for the government. Revenue is tax dollars. Every time they charge a fee, for example, $100 to print a sheet of paper at the Supreme Court, $100 more than commercial enterprises. That's taxation. So all of these things are happening. So here the point is, why are we putting Jamaican taxpayers' dollars in investment accounts? Why? That money should be in a fixed deposit account if we're going to be doing that, so it's earning interest at a guaranteed rate. Your principal isn't at risk. The other thing is, if government wants to invest our money, our tax dollars, the people should know. And not only that should the people know, but why not invest that money in the form of loans that people pay directly back to the government? Why are we circulating it through banks and financial institutions so that they are making money on top of the tax dollars that they're taxing us, and we're not getting any relief from the banks? So you see the continued criminal activity of how government allows people's and our tax dollars to be squandered, and these people are still ripping us off and making money off us, billing us, and they're not paying us any interest on our dollars in their accounts. And now we're hearing that it's all gone. Because I'm saying it's all gone, because this idea that they froze SSL accounts, they have to go pay back everybody who had money in there, or nobody at all. That's how it's going to work. It's either they have that money to pay back all these people, or they don't. I don't think they have it. It's gone. The money that was stolen by this young lady and the other persons and the other institutions, financial institutions, it's money that's gone. And you can't take money that's gone out of money that's in the accounts now that legitimately belong to other people and pay back persons who have lost their money. So this whole nonsense that they're publicizing that, oh, Mr. Bolt is going to get back his money because his attorney froze this and that. I already said weeks ago that Mr. Bolt attorney should have taken out a civil suit against SSL, but beyond SSL, sue all the persons who pulled their money out in what must have been insider trading, including the Prime Minister. And this is nothing personal against the Prime Minister. I'm just saying on a point of principle, if you're going to go after persons to refund persons who have lost money, or at least have some measure to try get back some of that money, you have to go after the persons who are involved in the insider trading, and again freeze those accounts and until it's resolved in the courts. I mean, they froze our business. We're trying to do projects, $40 billion projects that's going to create trillions of dollars for this economy, and some lowlife, not thinking, lack of intelligent judge issue injunctions against our project and our money in contempt of the court's orders. So if they can do that against us, why they can't do it against other accounts that were pulled shortly before, or relatively shortly before, all of this exposure came? It's discrimination, and it's a conflict of interest. And again, on a principle of just sheer transparency, the Prime Minister should in fact resign, regardless of what happened at FSC or Integrity Commission. The fact that it did happen, the fact that the Integrity Commission did submit a report, the fact that they put in the report there are suspicions that there were things that were questionable, is enough for any political leader or any leader at all to say, you know what, I need to let people in this country have the confidence in the economy, so let me pull myself out of this so that the country will survive this. Because as it stands now, I am looking for other parts of the world to go put my money. I am looking for other parts of the world to open our escrow accounts so that when we start doing our business, we don't want to hear our money is in some Jamaican bank and some slick banker crash the bank and take our money and run, and then somebody is going to call up and say, oh, well, you can get back $1 million or $1.2 million when you have billions and billions and trillions of dollars in an account. We're not going for that. So, just like me, I'm pretty sure there are other people out there now moving their money. Only a really silly person would sit there and have a ton of money in the bank in Jamaica and not look to move it. We're talking about persons who lost 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 plus thousand US dollars. That's millions and millions of dollars. And when you tabulate that and it amounts to a substantial amount, that's money that was stolen. That's people's savings and money. So are you trying to tell me that the people who live in the US or in the UK or other parts of the world or even on the island with some semblance of resources not looking for somewhere to put their money now? So again, keep going back. The press has a responsibility in helping to fix these issues that's occurring in the country. Why should we encourage people to spend their money in Jamaica, buying homes in Jamaica, when I can fly down to Florida or up to Atlanta or to the Carolinas and buy property? And property sometimes for far less than what they're selling for in Jamaica. That's another thing which I couldn't understand. The values of property, how they value property in Jamaica. Some realtor just sit down and decide, oh, we're going to up it. I mean, that was what was happening in Florida, and it's still happening, where realtors and builders just say, make we send up the price this week, see what happens. Then we send it up twice the amount next week, and that people think, oh, there are people really buying the homes for this, and panic and rush and buy, and then they have this false appreciation in property values. That's how they do it. And then when people realize that, oh, they can't sustain this kind of lifestyle or pay this bill, then the housing market crash. But then it's too late. The financial houses who furnish the loans have them insured, so they're not losing any money. So you hear all this talk about housing collapse in the US. Those banks never lost any money. A lot of them, at least, because they have insurance. They have mortgage insurance. And what they do, they collect the mortgage insurance, then foreclose on the property, and then turn around. Most of the time, persons don't bid on the house when it's foreclosed. The banks buy it back for sometimes $1. Then they turn around, hold it for a couple months, then sell it back for about the same amount that they claim they lost. And so they're making a ton of profit on it. Alright, so there's always a system in place for these people to rip us off. And I'm always using the US because it's a mature market. And I've always said to people, why are homes in Jamaica so expensive? You know, people buying a housing trust house in Jamaica for $10 million and $18 million. A housing trust house, which is a fraction of the quality of the house you get in Florida for less money, when you're less per square foot. It's not practical, it's not sustainable. And so when you have government through the housing trust paying developers that kind of money, then the country is being hurt as well. Because them little houses, I see them building and selling people for that kind of money. I bet you give people the money to go build on their own. Give them the land, sell them the land, and let them build a house. Anyway, the press needs to step up because it's killing the country, it's killing us, and it's going to end up backfiring on all of us. And a lot of these press people probably live on the island. The land of wood and water. We can't live in constant fear for our lives because of crime, corruption, and a press that refuses to do its duty. Do we have options? Yes, we do. We can become proactive, expose the press, make demands on them. We can take actions like ensuring that we call into anonymously and report people who are committing crimes. If the press won't do their jobs, report it. And if you're scared to report it to local law enforcement, call international law enforcement agents. They actually have agencies set up internationally that will take calls from Jamaica and then pass it on to the local authorities. But at least it's recorded, and you can save lives that way. You might be saving your own life. But people do have options that we need to come into the island and build Jamaica. And those options include other islands. They include the USA. They include Canada. They include, and a lot of people now are even looking as far as Africa. Though some of those places are scary as hell over there too, but people are actually looking into those areas as well. And even though Africa, a lot of those African countries, they have so many resources, but again, because of raging corruption there, our people are struggling and suffering. And I always say our people because we would be silly to say we're not of Africa. You look at my physique, nobody can tell me my ancestors, and I can't claim Africa. So our people are suffering there because of the same corruption. So we need to eliminate it. And we do have options. Forming organizations. In another couple weeks, or in fact less, I'm going to be putting out a video where I'm going to suggest practical solutions. Because I keep saying we need to separate government from contracts. For example, the same thing with the Prime Minister now is that the issuing of contracts. Government should not be involved with issuing any contracts. We need an independent body to deal with that. Government has work to do. It's passed over to this independent body. Has no government connection to now do the procuring or have entertained the bidding and all of that on contracts and making a decision over there based on objectivity and objective practical things that we need to look at. The contractor. We also need to investigate every applicant or person that we're bidding on those contracts, and where there are discoveries of impropriety or criminal activity in the past or current, then those people are barred from bidding on those contracts. If we find that these persons who are going to be bidding on these contracts have any relationship with government or government ministers, any at all, if they're friends, their relatives, their cousins, their brother, their sister, their mother, their father, then automatically they're barred from filing or making any application when it comes to government contracts, because then that prevents the insider trading and again government pressuring the people at these independent agencies from giving the contracts to their people, because you know that's going to go on. Simple solutions that can fix the issues by separating government and public officials from money. We also help to save this country from further corruption. Follow the money. If government has their hand in money, then there are going to be problems. So again, separate them from all connections to money. And so we have, again, no meddling of the money, no meddling of people's relationships, forcing them to grant contracts to their friends for whatever reason, intimidation, politics, whatever. We need to stop it from happening. Why is it important? Because corruption and all that we talked about affects this country's economy. And once it affects this country's economy, it affects the earnings and the quality of life of the people who live here. And how do we pay our bills? We have to depend on earning of foreign exchange, because there are issues there with our productivity as a country, and that we need to address as well. But in all practicality right now, for us to eat, everything we eat, or literally everything except probably for yam and banana. We probably soon import banana too. We probably soon have to import yam because we're not producing enough. We were producing rice at one point, now we're importing rice. So we're helping to build the economy in other Caribbean countries, hopefully. But we need to keep the country clean from scamming and corruption, because when people hear about all that's going on, and we mentioned tourists before and returning residents, it affects the capital inflows to us in the country. And if we don't have that money coming in, we can't pay our bills, we can't pay for the energy, we can't pay for food, we can't pay for medicine. And of course, the crime is going to increase, because when these hotels start closing down and all we get from them are just the salaries that our people work there because the profits go out, then you're going to have unemployment raging. Then you're going to have people wondering how we're going to pay our bills, how we're going to feed the kids, how we're going to pay for medicine. The crime. So you see the revolving circle, the cycle. It is perpetuating itself because we have failed to fight corruption. And a major component of that fight that's missing are the press. And we have to hold them accountable. And as a matter of fact, if they're not doing their job, pressure them, sign petitions, get them out of there, because they are helping to destroy this country, destroy us, threaten our lives, and throwing this country into a failed state. And again, I'll point, I keep using the term again, but guess what? It's applicable. Again, we keep saying the same things over and over again. We keep seeing the same things over again, and we're not doing anything about it. So again, I'm asking you to form groups, contact your friends, your associates, your anybody you know, and deal with and discuss these issues. You have a vested interest in the country if you're Jamaican. If you're not Jamaican, you have a vested interest in there, because the criminals we have spread across the planet, and they will affect you eventually. Right now, we have Jamaicans who are committing crimes in the US. We don't want that. We want to train our people and provide them with opportunities so that when they leave this country, they become productive members of society. And if they send back $1 to the island, it's an honest dollar. So we don't have those living on the islands now being grouped in or classified as being part of the so-called laundering of money and become criminals by label of law enforcement. Because we fall into that group. Because everybody that's on the island, literally, that does well, look like they're doing well, worked hard for the money, and some foreigner comes down there, especially law enforcement, and sees them with their nice homes, the first thing that comes to mind is we have to investigate them, because what kind of crime they committed to get here. So it's important for us to address these issues and not ignore them on a continuing basis. Now, how do we fight crime? Again, some suggestion we just made earlier. We need to also address education and training. And one of the things we need to really look at seriously is this. There was a discussion, and still ongoing discussion, about changing the constitution and all of that. Don't rush to change constitutions. Jamaica has one of the best constitutions. So these government officials who are jumping up about changing constitution, no, the US, you don't see the US going around and changing constitution every day. Or the British. So the British doesn't even have a written constitution. So we shouldn't be running up and down and talking about changing the constitution. We can fix our problems with the constitutions we have, or the constitution we have. So let's stop focusing on that and focusing on the real issue. Changing the constitution is not going to stop corruption. It's not going to stop crime. It's not going to eliminate poverty. What we can do to eliminate poverty and crime is provide opportunities for our people. And that we can do if we get rid of corruption. Because again, the kind of money we're losing, billions and trillions of dollars annually because of corruption, could be spent facilitating, educating and training our people so that they don't even stay on the island. We export their labor, and now their labor become part of the export of the island, and they move abroad fine, they live good lives there, they're earning. It's less burden on the country if we have our people migrating. Can you imagine the 3.6 million Jamaicans that are out here in other countries living and earning? If they were on the island, what would we be doing? Sorry again. And I've heard a lot of people, especially politicians, talking about, we have to put laws in effect to prevent nurses and teachers from going abroad. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to restrict your people from having the opportunities instead of setting up more training facilities and institutions so we can produce more teachers that are qualified to go global, more nurses that are qualified to go global, offer their services there? Because you know what? I know for a fact a lot of nurses who are Jamaicans and living abroad, a lot of them are some of the best investors in the country. They have jobs because their services are so valuable. They are persons who are typically not out of work unless they choose to. So that means if we didn't have those people migrating and working abroad, what would we be doing on the island of Jamaica? Not every parish even has a hospital, a functioning hospital. So what would we be doing with these hundreds of thousands of nurses that are abroad working, or teachers? So let's stop being vindictive because people move abroad and living abroad, and you think it's affecting the country in a bad way. No, it's not. What's affecting the country in a bad way is when we have to spend a lot of money on upkeeping people in prison, people who are non-productive, and we keep them there for 10-15 years, feeding them every day, 3 meals a day probably, providing medicine, providing security. That's billions of dollars on the burden on the Jamaican people, those who are working, on non-productive people. Instead of converting those institutions, once we have them locked up, we offer them training, and they never get out of there unless they have certification in certain trades, or they qualify academically so that they can also go abroad to work, or offer them the opportunity to come out now of prison and have the opportunity to go work, but they get certified, really certified, no scamming, No corruption where you give people some certificate, they pay some money and they come out like what happened in Florida with a bunch of people who are nurses, claim they're nurses, and what they did, they pay these institutions money. Legitimately, they didn't know to be qualified, and all they do is take the money, give them certificates, send them out to go kill people. Because if you go out and you're not trained, why would you want to do that anyway? And I don't understand people with the criminal mentality. Here you are in a country where you could get all the training you want, and you take big money, they didn't spend a little bit of money, they take big money and go pay somebody to falsify documents instead of just going through the paces, get qualified legitimately. And now a whole bunch of them could have ended up going to prison. Now, if that's not short-term dead-end thinking, I don't know what it is. But that's how criminals think, and they think, oh, we slick, or we beating the system. No, you're incarcerating yourself. Now, all those people who went and spent their big money doing that, they're not going to get back the money, and they might go to jail. No, a whole bunch of them going to go to jail. And the other thing is they're going to leave their job, and they'll never be certified again as nurses. So what are they going to do? Because, for example, in Florida and the South, where you have a lot of us Caribbeans coming up here, in Florida, the biggest industry for Caribbean people coming up here are nursing. And a lot of them are Caribbean people who fell into that bucket. So what are they going to do now? They're going to lose their homes. They can't pay the insurance. They can't pay the fees for the kids to go to school. Daycare is an impossibility because daycare is so darn expensive. So you see how people act in an irresponsible way that ruins their lives. So I'm saying, it would be good if we trained a whole bunch of persons in Jamaica now to come up and take their positions, so that we can reduce the burden on the Jamaican population with creative taxation. So we keep government, instead of working to reduce people's expenses so they increase the quality of life or their spending power so they can enjoy more. They can take a trip abroad, go on a cruise. All they do is work the whole of their lives, and then they end up paying medical bills and die. That's no kind of life, and we need to work to change it. So there are some of the basic things we can do to fix the problem. So like going back quickly to those persons in prison, train them. Instead of having them sit in Kingston or Spanish Town in jail in the cities, what we do is government find land that's abandoned. We have a whole bunch of land, acreage and acreage of land, that even government land. And when I say government land, I say it loosely because those lands are people's land, taxpayers' lands. So we need to get out of that too, given the impression it's government lands. And when people want it for practical use, there is this big fight between the government releasing property or leasing the property to productive persons who want it because it's government land. No, it's our land. Again, we have to make government start know that they work for us. They don't work for themselves. They're not in there to punish us or deny us opportunities. They're going there to make sure they manage our assets so that we have the opportunity to build the best lives possible for all of us. We need to bring government into compliance with the fact that we put them there to work for us. So far, it's not happening, and we can't keep living this way. We can't keep doing the same thing over and over again. And I guess you heard this before. If you keep doing the same thing over and over and expect different results, then we are mad people. Madness. It's madness. So we talk about the corruption. We know the people are corrupt. We don't do anything about it. Then we expect the results to be different because they're going to fix it, the same corrupt people. No, we have to do it. So again, I'm going to come out with a published strategy on how I think we could do it. And in fact, I'm going to initiate the movement towards doing it, not just talk. All right? Because like I said on many occasions, I believe in solutions. I'm a solutions-oriented person. I'm a proactive person. I don't react. I plan way ahead of everything I'm doing so that I can responsibly say to you, here are suggestions I'm putting out. What do you think? participate. Put your ideas in. As I said, put your little, how you go? Every little make a muckle or something like that. One cocoa full basket, you name it. Put your little bit in there, because your little bit might be a whole lot in terms of value. And we need to have that done. Now, this whole idea about the death penalty and all of that, thinking it's going to solve crime, no, it's not. I'm not a person that supports that, because we'd be known better than the people who get paid to go out and take people's lives. Premeditated elimination of people and they're destroying their family and lives is not a good thing, and it's not supported by any civilized society. But when we get panicky and we get stressed and we see all of this happening and there seem to be no solutions, when in fact all we have to do is sit down and simply come up with solutions. Now, one of the things I'm putting forward is that we stop talking about this death penalty thing, and what we do is, in school, we start educating kids, especially boys or males, before they graduate, the consequences of crime. We develop a curriculum on that, on criminal activity, the consequences of it, and the outcome, and the short-term outlook, and the penalties, and say it's a dead-end game. We develop a curriculum dedicated, a subject dedicated to educating those kids. And in that, we incorporate just simple morals and morality and ethics, because a lot of them really don't know, because we abandoned that a long time ago, and we keep allowing our people to watch television, and they've glamorized all this barbarism on television and all this abuse, and we sit there and watch it and we forget that it's entertainment. So we need to inculcate in our educational system something that's going to tamper these persons and their level of thinking, help to build their intellect. You can't change a person's intelligence, they're born with that, but you can certainly change their intellect by arming them with information and showing them, offer them practical training solutions before they graduate from school. So every secondary or high school must offer students training in skill areas and certify them, so when they leave they can go and get productive employment either locally or internationally. Why, when they graduate, they're out there, they can't read, write, they don't have any skills? What do you expect them to go do when somebody that's an evil son of a scumbag brings in weapons of mass destruction and feeds them? So you're desperate to pay your bills, or you think you're going to pay it? Here's 100,000 or 5,000 to go take out somebody. What do you think a desperate person is going to do? We need to look at practical solutions. And you know why it's going to be practically good for us? Because it's going to save us trillions and trillions of dollars, instead of putting these people in prison, feeding them for 15, 20 years, 30 years, and then burdening our population. When they come out, it's the same cycle. And when now you catch them after they graduate with this training, and we set up job fairs for international markets, and we catch them afterwards with weapons of mass destruction, either transporting it, whether they've committed a crime or not. One way to stop them from using that weapon and never use it again, so they're not repeat offenders. Because, you hear the news, they're going to jail, they come back out, they do the same thing. A guy's caught with weapons, they give him bail, they catch him, and he still has 10 more bodies on his hand. What we do? Remove his thumbs on both hands and the trigger finger. Can't do no firing after that. Simple stuff. We're not involved in any murder, but we remove the tools that he uses to accomplish the task. Now, that low life that's bringing in those weapons won't have any use for him, because he can't fire it. And if him go out and try to pull that on anybody, he's caught. So him can't fight, them have no use for it. And once he's caught, and the kids coming out of school and say, I don't want to go that route, because if they catch me with a weapon, then that is the consequence. Mandatory now, mandatory. You catch him with a weapon, boom, no argument. Take off them thumbs and the trigger finger. People who are caught that abuse women or male children or males committing that sexual offense that's so despicable and totally unnecessary. Once you catch them, then you perform the Bobbitt surgery. I'm pretty sure about the lady in New York, Miss Bobbitt, who dealt with her cheating boyfriend or husband. If him not have his tools to carry out that malicious, violent, oppressive measure on women, girls, or boys, him not going to do it. So you remove the tool. Let him squat when him have to go to the bathroom. And not only that, people like that, we have a chip. And chip him and have radio signals when they're within certain ranges of schools. We can track where they are. The same thing with those people who use weapons of mass destruction. Once they're caught, especially when they're committing the crime of a convicted crime of taking people's life, put multiple chips in them so they can go dig them out and put them in strategic positions so it's difficult, and they keep it for life. Because then we can have electronic monitors anywhere in the supermarkets, in that signal, and send a signal not only to law enforcement, to the business places, that we have one of those active persons. So him not only have the chip, but now you see him with his hand and all of that. This is a guy we have to watch, because if him can't do it now, he's going to try to get an accomplice to work with. And when you see him, then you check out who is he with. It becomes easier to manage that class of persons, that class of citizens. So it's not difficult, it's humane. And so we don't have to keep them in prison for 15, 20 years. Sentences could be shorter. We have persons who have long-term or short-term prison terms who work on farms, produce their own food. The excess food that's produced is sold on the open market. They're paid to doing it now. We don't want slaves. We're not supporting slavery. They're paid their percentage, their salary that they get from doing this. Part of it goes towards paying for their bed, their shower, their meals. Part of it goes to the victims of their crime. The rest goes into a bank account that sits and grows. Now, one of them SSL, something that them thief out their money, so that when they do leave the institution certified with qualifications that they can go out and be productive members of society, whether they have their fingers or not, them trigger finger or the thumb, because you can't do a whole lot without them. Now they go out, they have a bank account, they have money, so they don't end up out there desperate, so they end up going into a life of crime again. Creative solutions. You give your feedback on those things, and I'm not going to say it. And again, it's going to save taxpayers and us a ton of money, because if they're producing, it means with taxpayers don't have to go buy the food to feed them. The money in their account can cover their medical services if they have to do it. We even use it to pay insurance while they're in there. So if they pass off or they get sick, they have insurance, so pay insurance out of the money they're earning in there. The money they're earning goes to help victims of their crime. So now the poor persons that they took away, the income earners, the kids don't necessarily have to go through all that suffering. You don't have to tell the kids where it's coming from or the people directly, but it goes into an agency that give them compensation, especially if they have kids going to school, young kids. And so that those funds are deposited in the interest or in a trust for those persons to pay school, pay medical, help out with house and all of that, so we don't end up with people or kids or victims end up suffering even more. I mean, they've lost somebody, and that's a major suffering that you can never compensate anybody for. But at least now, these persons who did that injustice will have to pay for the rest of their lives to ensure that they compensate the person for the loss. In that regard, we file lawsuits against gun manufacturers. As a nation, we do a class action suit against gun manufacturers wherever. If a Glock is found, we find who made the Glock and we sue them. If some submachine gun is found, we find who make it and we sue them. And we keep suing them until they start taking measures to prevent those weapons from reaching our shores. And we insist that they put chips in these weapons. Put chips in these weapons that they can track them wherever they go in the world. Right? They can track food, they can track drugs, why they can't track weapons? Put a chip in there and satellite tracking it where it's going. And when they see it leaving the US shores, they know whosoever, we can track it and pick it up. When it taps into Jamaica shores, we pick it up. In fact, before it reaches Jamaica shores, we can pick it up within our territorial waters. We have the technology out there, so we invest in it because that's going to save us, again, in terms of tax dollars, bodies, and innocent victims. Or children suffer because of these activities. Simple strategy that works, because what we're doing now no work. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't see the cops coming up with any solutions. So I'm putting this out there for us Jamaicans, people listening this, because it can be applied not only to Jamaica. You can do the same thing with Haiti, with other islands that are now suffering because of this transshipment of drugs and other things through their territories, and end up through Jamaica as a transshipment port, the Bahamas. So we have a joint venture operations with all these islands to shut it down. We do the same thing. Have those people get training. The Haitians, have them educated and trained, just like what we're doing in Jamaica. They have the resources, they have the minerals. We raise capital. That's where an investment house comes in now. We find out where in Haiti they have these. We make arrangements with the Haitian people. We raise capital to put those things into production to help the country. We don't have to be dealing with no charity or begging anybody for money, begging the Europeans, begging the British, begging the Americans or the Canadians to do anything in Haiti. Haiti, we can have our investment houses, raising capital, go invest it in Haiti, invest it in Jamaica, instead of having prisons, we have educational institutions that we put these people in and incarcerate them in there. We need to get rid of this whole prison concept where we're torturing and punishing people, because you can't punish a person enough to pay for the life they took. And then we send them out to go take more lives because we don't dismantle the tools that they have. So the gun is not only the tool. The weapons of mass destruction is not the only tool. That can't work without 1, 2, 1, 2, and both hands. Thank you. I'm sorry to end on that really bad note about what's going on, but that's reality. And if we are to build our country, we have to deal with that. Everything is interrelated. One affects the other. Just like I said, how the lack of action on the press affects the same thing. Crime, violence, it affects everything. So what we are doing in terms of coming up with solutions is to fix everything. We can't fix one and leave the other unattended to, or it's going to spin over and cause us problems down the road. I want to thank you. It's Saturday. It's really, really nice out by the beach. I wish you could enjoy that. But if you can't, take the time again to relax a little. No, it's not hopeless. No, we can achieve this. And I said, I'm throwing all of this out there, because a whole bunch of you, I imagine, are young people or mature people with experience. And we can put both of those traits together and come up with solutions. So have a great weekend. Please like the video, share it, and subscribe, because it's going to make a difference. As I said, I'm not just about talk. I want to put into effect practical solutions, and part of that is I've decided to let me grow this channel and this blog so we can harness or garner the support from not only Jamaicans but anybody that wants to help solve crime. And we're not just focusing, our initial campaign is definitely to focus on Jamaica and show that the practical solutions work. And it's going to save the economy, and it's going to help fight inflation, increase our net worth as a nation, both financially and otherwise. It's going to bring people back to Jamaica to want to retire in Jamaica, and so it's worthwhile us taking the time to invest. My things are always longer than I had planned. I didn't plan to go beyond half hour, but it's a lot. But again, you have the responsibility now. Don't burden yourself, don't pressure yourself, but just know when you make a contribution in terms of spending some time to come up with solutions yourself, or let's work together, then it will be worth it in the long run for all of us. Have a great weekend again. Hopefully I'll be talking to you soon. And again, share, like, subscribe. Remember, the subscription doesn't cost you money. I was like at one point, when I was never online, Facebook, all of that person. I'm forced to be here because I've decided to play a role into making a difference. I just can't stand to see the planet deteriorating at the rate it's going, especially when you have family out there. I have a lot of family out there, and I'm one of the lucky ones, because I was able to trace back my ancestry to 62,000 years. No, sorry, 6,500 years. 6,000 BC or something like that. Or was it 3,000? But in any case, I'm talking about I can go and touch one of my relatives that lived and died more than 4,000 years ago. So I know who I am. I have a whole lot of gaps to fill, but it's a liberating thing to know that your people played a major role on the planet, and a lot of them weren't kings or queens, but there were nations of men who made a difference, and that's you. Pretty sure a whole bunch of you I'm talking to are my cousins. In one of the searches I did, I found in one area alone I had about 18 million cousins. I'm deadly serious. 18 million cousins, male, not to mention the females. So if you have any medical background or you can't understand what I'm talking about, but we'll deal with that on another level, on a personal level. But it's a liberating thing, especially when you know the stories they've been telling us in schools are stories. They should stop teaching Clinton black history in school, because it's a big old lie. Those are some of the things we need to teach our young people to, because with being conscious of who you are, our achievements as a people, then they're not going to want to regress to the level that they are now, because they know they value themselves more than not being worth anything. Thank you. They have a lot of hope afterwards, but it's a liberating thing. Alright, so thanks to all my friends, cousins, and all of that out there that I haven't discovered yet. I'm coming, and you do the same. Have a good one.